how to practice broken chords. This is one of my favorites because now we're getting into the theory. So before we even do any playing, I would start by explaining what a chord actually is. And it's not a chord. I know it's spelled C-H-O-R-D, but we don't say chord, we say chord. And I would start by explaining to the children what is a chord. If some of them might already know it, but some of them don't. A chord is when you're having to play a group of sounds, so you have to have a minimum of 2 sounds or more. And if you're playing it at the same time, then that would be a chord. All of those would be chords. You're playing a few sounds as a group together. And a broken chord is basically those notes, however many you would have. Let's say we have 3, but broken up. So you're now playing one by one. Or right? So first thing is making sure that if you have a child or if you are a teacher and you're teaching your student, make sure that they understand the concept of a chord. What is a chord? That's the very first game. And then we break it down and we say, right, for piano, just to make it easy, we're going to start with chords that have 3 notes in them. Obviously you can have more, but let's just start with chords that have 3 notes. So if we take the chord of C major, and they will hopefully already know the scale of C major, I would say, can I just have the first 5 notes of the scale? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. In order for us to form our chord, because it is the chord of C, say C major, we will definitely keep the C, which is our first note. We're then going to add the 3rd and the 5th note. And it's very easy. And I get them to show me with their fingers. So 1, 3, 5. And I will ask them again. So how many notes are we going to start with for our first chord? 3. Fantastic. Which ones are we going to use? The 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th. Okay, so let's apply this. So we got the chord of C major. So they would place their hand with one finger above every note. Thumb would be on C. So we take the 1st, not the 2nd, but the 3rd, not the 4th, but the 5th. So they would have brilliant. And I'll say to them, can I play this? Can I hear this together as a chord? Wow, awesome. I'll ask them if they can play it for me an octave higher. Even higher. What about lower? Even lower. So now I know that they've definitely got the chord of C. Once I'm absolutely sure that the children have understood the chord of C, then we will have some fun by moving to another chord. And I'll say, can I have a chord of F? You already know the formula. You take the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th note. So your thumb will go on F, yeah, your first note. And then let me hear the 3rd and the 5th. Wow. And then play me some more Fs. And by this time the children are getting excited because they're finding this easy and they know what it means. Then I'll say, can I have a chord of G? Can I have a chord of, I don't know, A, D? And I know we are now getting into minor chords that sound slightly different, but maybe we stick to the major chords first of all. So we stick to C, F, and G, let's say, right? Once they've got this, then it's fine. And then our first lesson on chords would be simply making sure that the children or your students absolutely understand what a chord is, and they are able independently to form lots of different chords beginning on any keys, right? If you've covered this, then we move on to the next thing, which is again combining theory. The chord that we play, the C major chord with 1 and 3 and 5, is basically what we call a root position. It's like your first chord with finger on C. And your notes are C, E, and G. Okay? But I say to the children, what if instead of using the middle C, I keep my E, I keep the G, but I want to bring the C on the top. So I want to use top C, not middle C. So not middle C, but top C. Aha, we now have this chord sort of topsy-turvy. So instead of having C, E, G, my C is gone up there now. So I've got C, E, G, C. And I say to the children, is that fun? And they go, oh yeah. I said, well, it's still a chord of C major. The only difference is that now we've moved it. We've moved the position of the C. So it's the first time we're turning it on its head. So we call it the first inversion. And you can introduce this vocabulary. This is nice and easy. So I would say to them, can I have a chord of C major in the root position? And they love this game. So we do. Good. Turn it on its head. Give me the first inversion. And I hear them speaking to themselves out loud. They're saying, keep the E, keep the G. So they're bringing their thumb on E, the second finger on G, and then C on top. And I say, fantastic. Let's see if we can do the same game with a chord of F major. Find me the root position of F major. And they'll go 1, 3, 5, F, A, C. And I'll say, can we turn this one into its head? Can we give me the first inversion of this? And they'll say, oh, keep the A, keep the C. F comes on top this time. Yes? And you can have this game with them. Once you've covered the first inversion, I say, well, why stop there? Let's take it a little bit further. So we put the C on top. So now we have E, G, C. How about now we bring the E on the top? So where your thumb is, we don't use this middle E, but we use the other one. So our notes continue to be C and E and G. But now we have E at the bottom, sorry, G at the bottom. So we go G, C, E. How about that? And quite often when you see the children's faces, it's like another new world has just opened up to them. Wow, I can turn it on its head yet again, another topsy-turvy. Wow, so we have root position, first inversion. I said, what shall we call this one? Most of the time they will say, second inversion, which is brilliant. This is the language we are using in our theory anyway. So yeah, root, first position, and second inversion. I would also go on to explain to them that if we were to continue, we would actually find ourselves back on the root position, because now we are back with C on the root. So we just have root, first and second inversions. And they've got it, they've got the concept, they know what that means. So then before we're breaking them up, I'm just saying, let's start with C major. I want to hear root, first and second inversion. So I would hear. And then I say, can I hear that backwards now? So I want second inversion, first inversion, and then back to root. Fantastic. Once the children are confident with this, and we are still just sticking with the right hand at this point, making sure that they understand the concept and they are confident with one of the hands, then I would say, now, is it called chords or is it called broken chords? They'll say, yeah, it's called broken chords. So all we need to do is break them up. So instead of playing those sounds all at once, we are just playing them one at a time. So we would go root, first inversion, second inversion. I say to them, have a rest now on the C. Wonderful. See if you can come back starting with your top note. Down to your first inversion and down to the root. And finish on the G. That's it. You've just explained the concept of broken chords. This is what is expected of them in grade 1. Once they can do this with one hand, it's a transferable thing because the formula is the same. You're just moving it from C to F. You're doing this and then coming backwards. Or you're moving it to the G position. So you're starting on G but applying the same rules. So root, first inversion, second inversion, and back. Once they get this, adding the left hand and saying, can you do the same thing with the left hand? So G is your first note, so you go G, B, D, or C, E, G. Obviously the fingering is different because you're starting with your little finger on the left. And then when you come back, you start with your thumb. So second inversion, first inversion. But again, because we didn't start by explaining with numbers, we explained the concept that we take the first note of the scale and the third and the fifth. We didn't say use your thumb or your third or your fifth finger. It just so happened with the right hand that we had to use those numbers. But the concept was not the hand as such, it was the scale. We use the scale as our frame. So then it's easy no matter what scale they've got. They take the first, the third, and the fifth note of their scales, and they can keep turning it on its head to get the first and the second inversions. And this is what is expected of children in grade 1 to do. They're expected to know C major, F, G, also D minor and A minor. So to start with, we start them with no sharps, no flats, just to make it nice and easy. And also the people taking grade 1 tend to be sort of younger, and we keep the chord with 3 notes because their hands can't quite stretch to the octave, yeah, so we keep it that way. That's broken chords explained. Once they can play the notes, so they understand the thinking, then you can start working with them on the quality of sound that they're producing. Because there are 3 notes, we want to get a feeling that this is in 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So for that reason, I would always encourage the children or my students to count to 3 before they start. So I would say, are you ready to play, let's say, C major broken chord? Yes. Have you got your hands in position before you start? Most of the work for us happens before we begin. They will say, yes, I have. Brilliant. Let me check, and I will check and say, are you sitting nice and straight and you've got it? Yes. Count to 3 and then we start. So they would go 1, 2, 3. Another group of 3 and another, and wait, 2, 3, back. 1, 2, 3, and then off, right? Nice and easy. You can encourage them to play more legato because quite often they want to completely break the groups. It's okay when they are starting, let them find their feet. But once they are really confident, they know what fingers they're using, they know how it feels, then you can encourage them to play legato. Then you can start to look for those things that we said, when we start, which is equal in volume, equal in tone. We don't want sound, we don't want anything jerky. We just want to shape our music nicely. And you're encouraging them to listen and to make the right choices for themselves. When you move a little bit more, the next step for the broken chords, so in England with the associated board exams, this starts at grade 2. It's exactly the same concept, but because their hands can hopefully reach a little bit more, they can reach the octave, then the broken chords, instead of just being C, E, G, we bring the C down here and up there. So we start with C and finish with C. So instead of having a chord with 3 notes, we now have a chord with 4 notes. And again, we take the first, the third and the fifth, 1, 3, 5, but we double the first. So we do 1 and 8, which are the same notes. So C, E, G and C again. And you use fingers 1, 2, 3 and 5. But the concept is exactly the same. So you have your root, your first inversion, which starts with the E, and your second inversion, and you're back on root. And you come backwards, starting from the highest note, down to your second inversion, first inversion, and root. It's easy, it's not much different, you're just adding an extra note, so it should be easy for you guys to practice this. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching.